if you see the campus here boasts of primary school education, secondary school education, and then the tertiary level education. All sections of the society come to this campus, and that is what adds vitality to this campus. It's not purely a tertiary education institution, which means there are families, there are children, an entire segment of society is involved. I think one of our core values is social transformation through dynamic education. I think this is a living example. This campus is a living example of that, where you see kids crossing places, you see school children running around, you see cars flashing red lights, all sorts of people come together. It's almost like a crucible or a melting pot of different age groups. So our values are essentially education for all. That's the first one, and it's quite aptly demonstrated right on the campus. Then we're also talking about social upliftment. And this means that we are not catering only to the cream or la cream of the society or the elite of the society, but we are actually looking at people from the neighboring areas. You look at Katraj, Ambegaon, all these places where our own staff members are working, but also, more importantly, the so-called lesser privileged people who live in the periphery of Pune city actually access our facilities. So in that sense, our values are really wide-ranging and far-reaching to the society. We are probably one of the first institutions in India in architecture who has gone online teaching. So we do a fair amount of online teaching in a different sense though. It's not about classes, but it's about sharing of experiences with number of architects. That's a separate project. That's one big thing that we have started in the last year. There have been, of course, excellent establishments. Over 700 students have walked through the portals of this college and are now into practice as well-known architects. Many of them have gone overseas and pursued masters. Some of our own faculty members, I think we have about 4 of them, who have studied in this institution, done post-graduation, and then are teaching in this institution, which simply means that there is a lot of love, affection, and that's something incredibly good about this institution that retains people here, that binds them together to this place. One of the promises that I have to myself and to this institution is the next 5 to 7 years, we should see Bharati Vidyapeeth College of Architecture, Pune as one amongst the top 10. So accordingly, we've started doing something. One of the first things that happened last year was we increased our intake from 40 students to 80 students. So that is almost trying to get into an efficient system of working. So efficiency is one thing that I've learned abroad, and I definitely would like to see happening, and I'm taking charge of that idea of efficiency here. That's one. Second, I think there's a lot of focus and there's some building required on alumni front. One thing that I've observed abroad in my stay of over a decade in foreign universities is that a lot of universities tend to flourish on their alumni, on the connections that they have with their alumni. And I think we need to do a fair amount of building networks or building bridges with our alumni. We have alumni positioned in all possible areas. We need to bring them back to the institution. I need to tell them how much I love them, how much this institution loves them, and how much they can inspire the coming generations. One classic thing which anybody would say is, no, now that we have a tree, let's make it a jungle. I'm going on a little lateral track on this. I said, yeah, we of course have a tree here, but how can this tree be really more beautiful, more fruitful, and more anchored? Rather than having too many trees in the jungle, if you have one solid tree, it's always that one tree which people worship. It's not the entire jungle that everybody worships. It's one tree. And we need to make our roots so strong that come what may, it does not shake. So I think while taking forward the values that we have had of social transformation, I think we will still need to do that transformation. we'll need to be prepared even more or brace ourselves even more because the transformation by itself is growing at such a fast pace. So to keep pace with the transformation, the tree needs to be deeply rooted. It cannot be on a very superficial level. Yeah, of course, it's great to have 20 different campuses of Bharati, but if you're not able to put it together, then probably we'll lose something. And I think first thing is to protect the stability of this tree. That's the first one. Second, make it more attractive, make it more beautiful, and say that this is the icon. This is what every other tree should aspire to be. So this is the value, I think, I don't know if you will call value, but this is an aspiration that we all have. I think as head of the institutions, we all would like to consolidate this tree into a much larger something. There's a concept called Kalpa Vriksha. So from an ordinary tree to go to the Kalpa Vriksha, there is a big transformation that has to happen. And I think the time will indeed be a witness to this transformation.